Yeah, so today's event was regarding demographic, digital demography, and we had a good session with all renowned panelists, and we had a good discussion. Many aspects other than the digital demography was discussed, and it was a fruitful one, and we hope such discussions will continue. Thank you.
So basically, the new telecom bill is now live on the DOT website, the draft bill. It is, the comments are invited till 21st of October, if I'm not wrong. And these companies like Meta, etc., they have already put their submission that we don't want to get into that kind of regulation where we have to, store every information of the users of WhatsApp, Facebook, etc. So obviously, this bill will face a lot of challenge and debate, etc. But that's a different kind of an aspect.
No, the thing is, you said it is about encryption, but if this comes in, then the government will also ask for the keys.
Right.
So it will never be, they will be able to actually read your messages.
Right.
Excuse me, I'd like to throw a slightly different light here. For so long, we have been discussing about how to educate people and train people about all these miscreants. But allow me to introduce a country called India, where we saw weird things happening when this coronavirus struck. We saw people going to temples, banging utensils and saying, "Go Corona, go Corona." We have seen people worshipping Corona Mata. We have seen people, actually seen this, people actually applying cow dung on themselves so that Corona would not touch them. Now, this industry, this miscreant industry, it is a very sophisticated industry. It operates like a normal multinational company, almost Six Sigma type of efficiency. You think of something today, you train people on something, they will think of something else tomorrow, which we are not able to identify. I believe, pardon me for saying this, but I believe we are talking about something that is not in our hands. So let us try to think of something which is in our hands, which people like us can actually practically do. I'll tell you, one day I was listening to some street urchins, ordinary people, ordinary street urchins, boys, and they were discussing things about Spotify, they were discussing things about YouTube, they were discussing all the international channels that we use, and they are once again street urchins, people who probably live in the slums. And I, being a person who spent his entire career with education and training, I was standing and wondering that think about the potential. This entire crowd, if they can be channelized towards international arenas of education and training, what kind of futures they have. We talk about things like unemployment. We talk about things like skill gap. I'm telling you, there is no skill gap. We are just allowing the crowd to go in a wrong direction, and we are not doing anything about it. Today, thanks to internet, thanks to technology, a school student sitting in Kachrapada can have the same kind of education as a person sitting in California. But are we using it? So using things like technology, if people like us can think of ideas to channelize education and training for the budding people, for the Indian intelligentsia, that can spark a huge revolution. That's what I think.
Mr. Bajaj, you take comment?
I have a comment on everything, That's my problem.
That's actually is the solution. Don't believe on the digital Google, but we believe the physical Google like you. So you get the right kind of solution.
So firstly, I was very interested in the point which Pankaj raised, and I think we got diverted into privacy issues. So he was talking about fake news, one, and another aspect of which was not using the term, but it is biased news. So when you have internet and WhatsApp forwards and all, that is fake news is there, yeah. Biased news is also there. So if I have a particular belief, I would actually spread information related to that. If I get a message, supposing it's a debatable point, we should not use these terms publicly, but supposing I am a Hindu fanatic, I will get some message about some puja, some temple, something, I will forward it to 100 people. There is another message which comes which says the Hindu religion has got a problem, so to say. Whatever, it's not about other religions. Hindu religion has a problem, I will not like it, I will not possibly read it, I will definitely not forward it. So these are all biased information. Channels, if you talk about, channels are also biased. If you watch Republic channel, you will see some aspect of the news. You go to NDTV, you get another aspect of the same news. So we are all having biased news. You have to use your own thoughts, filter it out at your end, as was discussed. One interesting thing you might have noticed is that whenever you read, I generally read a lot of news from Google News. And of course Twitter is another important place where I can get news, because it's about the latest information. If somebody died, if somebody got an award, it's not on Twitter, it's probably not true. But of course there are fakes there also. So what Google does, Google News, whenever you start clicking on certain news, it monitors that what news you are consuming. And you must have noticed that it will start showing you more of that news.
That is it. Your interest
Algorithm is like that. So how we tackle it is that I do all my work through Chrome possibly. And then whenever I have to read the news, etc., I actually access Firefox or Brave, which is heavily privacy oriented. So Brave is another browser. Anybody heard about Brave? One? So Brave is another browser which is heavily privacy oriented, and I don't log in into that browser, because unless you log in, it is very difficult to monitor your interests. So what I do is I do all my work on Chrome on my mobile, but when I have to read this news, I will go to Firefox where I am not logged in. I will go to Brave where I am not logged in, and there is a higher chance of getting a wider spectrum of the news, instead of just the news related to topics which you have been constantly clicking on and reading. So that is one thing which we can do in our work. So use an alternative browser to read the news where you will possibly get a wider spectrum. So if you read a newspaper, they will give all sorts of news, but there is a bias.
Even if you log into the other browser, you will they will identify your primary email account.
You can go to
if you don't log in, then it is not possible.
incognito.
You don't log in, and of course incognito is there. Frankly speaking, because I am into this technology, incognito also shares a lot of information. It does not store cookies and all, but they know that you are the same person internally. Hard refresh, again, that's a totally different topic. So if it works for you, great. But the way I use it is, use an alternate browser. Even for airline tickets, like if you check the fare for some sector all the time, you will see that the fare will constantly keep on increasing. The offers will keep going away. So what you do is, check the airline fares on another computer where you're not logged in at all, and you notice which is the favorite flight that I'm going to take, or etc., etc., and then you book it through another computer.
People are showing different prices even if we are booking from the same
Yes,
place.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah. So what I do, another thing which I do is, again, I'm sharing my personal experiences. I have seen that whenever I try to check fare from multiple sources and try again and again and again, I always get higher fares. So it's a very odd thing, but what I do is, whenever I have decided I'll have to go to Mumbai tomorrow morning, I will check the fare. First time I get some offer, I just take it. Because most of the times I have seen that whenever I have done checking, comparison and all, I have always landed up with higher fares. So these are some of my learnings from the trenches, the real life. You might like to use this in your life.
One of the biggest
Uber. You stand on Park Street and you try and say, "Arey yaar, ye to 400 mang raha hai. Let me wait out, and 10 minutes later I will try. It will be 450, 500. Have you started using InDriver, any of you?
Yes.
InDriver is offering better fares in some cases, but not all.
You can quote your own price.
Bidding process is there. It does not give you the offer that you give, but generally the fares are cheaper than Uber and Ola. Ola is still there. Does it exist anymore?
In Calcutta, no, but yes, in other parts of
Other parts, I think.
So Vishal, what is your take in this whole subject on digital demography? Since you travel a lot across the world, so definitely you would like to, and you are teaching and learning, something which you are teaching across the globe, you know?
It's quite good that we had this COVID situation, and we were forced to earn and learn from home. So in our case, we got teachers from foreign countries also to do some English classes, communication classes for our students. In our case study program also, we could get people from all over. Prior to that, we were very confined to, let's say, Kolkata and maybe neighborhood and things like that. And same, like I also go to a lot of places to sort of speak and judge. So that time I could sit at home and like judge like few sessions in a day. But now again, they're calling me, so one day I can do one session only, something like that. So I think it's quite good, and obviously we are talking about all the drawbacks of the digital transformation that has happened. I think this was going to happen. It just happened a bit quicker due to COVID. It was just the catalyst, it's the accelerator that we had. But I think it's good that now we are in this hybrid model, and I think we should make best out of it. Hybrid is very good if you can use it to your advantage, and it can be, it depends on you how you नींबू निचोड़ना आपके हाथ में है. Thank you.
I would like to just add something. I have been fortunate enough to be a part of the National E-Governance Program. This was started by the government sometime in 2007. What we were talking about just now is how the digitalization kind of takes time to take over, and Pankaj just mentioned that the technology for automation has come, but the automated cars may take 15 years. So the government then had started this program for bridging the urban and rural divide, and it is a brilliant program. The only problem is because India is divided into states, and most of the documents of all the concept of the program was that a laborer who has traveled from probably West Bengal to Kerala and is working there doesn't have his documents, because in those days, earlier days, documents were not digitized. And if he needs a birth certificate or he needs any land records or something like that, then he had no access to it sitting there. So the concept was that under the government umbrella, they would digitize everything, upload on a portal, and then make it accessible to everybody across the country, or probably later even abroad. It took a huge time for all the documents to be digitized and to be uploaded. There were states who refused to do it. There were some states who did it very fast. But if today, when we stand here in 2022 and we look back, we see the Jam Trinity, the Aadhaar, the Jan Dhan and the Mudra loans. This could not have come unless it had started way back then. So today, as a lawyer, we see that the government is trying to digitize even the litigation process, so that there's a last mile delivery of justice. In a country like ours, with this huge rural population below the poverty line, it is only digitization which can give them a last mile delivery of justice. A person sitting in a remote village, let's say in Malda, needs justice, cannot afford to go up to Supreme Court, and therefore even they probably come up to High Court in Calcutta. They do not have the funds. So for a country like this, digitization, if used well, can be the only reply to a multiple of problems. But it is up to us whether we can control the society. And as somebody was mentioning, that a lot of companies would not like to come under the government scanner. But the problem is, if these platforms are being used for anything illegal, for frauds, for scams, then there is no option. And if we approach the authorities for any kind of relief from any fraud, then there is no option but to bring these platforms under the scanner, because unless they have control of some nature, they cannot give any relief or any kind of do any investigation. If you are completely out of the control of the government, then there cannot be any investigation. Nobody is bound to give you any information if something goes wrong. So there are two sides to the whole thing. There has to be a check and balance. How much and how less is what ultimately will be decided by the legislature while framing the laws. And if we see 2007, when this first came in, the National E-Governance Program, there was absolutely no check and balance, nothing. Today slowly it has, developed, and it will keep developing, and there will always be some people who will take advantage of the loopholes. So there can never be a situation where we will ever get rid of the fraudsters. If you remember the pre-digitization days, even then there used to be frauds in banks and scams in banks, and mostly it is financial scams that we are talking about. The privacy comes later, it has come in only now. So, but that happened then also, and we would find some way or the other to kind of manage it. That's just a small point.
Do you believe that to take forward this agenda of e-governance, the next wave of technology, which can be blockchain, is one of the solutions? And I invite Suresh ji to give his comments, to come forward and participate in this debate.
Literally not prepared, and
No, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I do use the iPhone, but I maybe 5% of its applications.
Yeah, but your comments are invited.
Please, feel free. Yeah, blockchain can be, because